Welcome back to the Mount Much Tarot channel. I am your host, Sarah, and today we are doing Trump's last week of November. And boy, oh boy, this should be an exciting, interesting reading because he's had a time recently. Before we get started, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you're new here and you enjoy political divination, hit the subscribe, stick around and become part of the community. We would love to have you. Now, normally for Donald Trump's weekly updates, we do Lenormand Grand Tableaus exclusively. But this week we're going to do something a little different. So hopefully you enjoy this. Let's go ahead and get started. Looking into Trump's medical events for the week, or for the final days of November. This is really wild. Look at here what we've got. We've got the garden, the coffin, and the bear. And at a glance, that just makes me think of, well, you know what? Right out in public, and it's a big deal, but we're not going to get that lucky. But if we were going to, this would be a good combination for it. In the center here with the stork, the overarching energy for Trump this week, as far as his health goes, is him flying off the handle. Interestingly, over here, I think we've got a little bit of a medical riddle. So if you are a medical professional or medically oriented or literate, maybe you can figure out what the riddle might be. We've got flow, we've got key, or like a keyhole, or possibly like a port of some kind. And then we have the stars, which in this instance, I feel like has something to do with light or lasers or some type of instrument that utilizes light for one reason or another. So I keep thinking of a keyhole with a light shining through into it, and the flow of something is observed. Now, I don't know what that could possibly be. Like I said, if you are medically literate, maybe it's a little bit of a riddle. Looks like he likely could have a little bit of, not really a medical event or an emergency, but possibly will be back in for a checkup of some kind. We know that recently he's been having to go to, secretive doctor's appointments, and he's having to get some checkups here and there, which is not at all far-fetched. I mean, for, a man of his age and his condition, regarding his health, it's pretty common to have to make a lot of trips to a doctor, and frequently. And obviously the news is not going to cover it every single time he goes. They want to keep up this strong man appearance here in the public eye. They don't want people to see how bad off he is. So let's get some tarot cards to go along with this and see what we can get. Like with the stork and the magician, we have a transformative energy in the center. And then we have the wheel of fortune. The wheel is spinning. It's always spinning. Another reference here to a doctor's appointment with these cards. And possibly bad news. Bad news from a doctor. I'm getting the vibe that the Two of Cups here is a reference to a medical professional. And with the Five of Cups, it could be that they tell him like something has progressed, something has degraded, gotten a little bit worse. It'd be really interesting if we had the Mice card up here. That would really kind of back that up. But I'm kind of getting a feeling of like they've fought off as much as they can of whatever this medical issue is, and they've kind of gone down every avenue to set him on the right path to move forward with his health, but it's not going to get any better, and things are kind of just going to go downhill from there. Kind of getting the feeling here that because we've got such a strong doctor's appointment reference on this side, that these two cards together may be potentially a new drug, possibly that they're putting him on, a new medication. And it looks like with this card included, could be that, because there's, references here with like courage and bravery and stuff like that. So if you kind of tone it down and bring it down to a medical setting, it makes me think of like, oh, well, if you're interested, we can try this new drug. It's a little experimental, but, we kind of believe that it could be beneficial to you. And to bring in these three cards up here, I think these cards are relevant as well. So this is like opening up, bravery, the coffin, maybe keeping it on the DL. But these two cards are kind of making sense with the message here. I definitely feel like this is possibly a new medication that they might offer him. And to go back to the center energy here, it makes sense with these cards as well, because something transformative and moving away from where you were previously at. So he's moving away from most likely the regimen he's been on and kind of going in a new direction. And they don't know exactly what it will do, if it will have a positive impact or maybe a negative impact or maybe even a neutral impact. They don't know if it'll help at all. So big reference to a possible doctor's appointment here. Very interesting for his health reading this week. So let's talk about Trump's next big scandal or thing that people are talking about in the upcoming week and toward the end of November, beginning of December. So it looks like we have the fish card, overarching energy to represent possibly something financial. Could be a reference to abundance of some sort. And then we have the anchor, the clouds, the stork, the dog, the tower, the whip. If we're looking at this from a financial perspective, it looks like on one side we have two conflicting cards. One is about flying away or, going from one place to another. The other one is about staying put. And in the center, there is confusion and uncertainty. And then over here, we have the tower, which generally comes through to represent the government, the loyalists, and the whip for discourse, arguing, fighting, things like that. So it could be some type of dispute in the government, and most likely the loyalists that he has in government. So like, think Mike Johnson or someone who's not in the direct administration around him, but is still loyal to him, similar to those in the administration. So let's see, what is the big energy with the fish card? Let's make sure that this is a financial reference. That's what it definitely looks like, but let's see what we can get. Got some type of fighting, some type of, there's a really big energy of a dispute of some type here. Definitely thinking that, the tower card being here could be for sure in Congress, or it could be other branches of government. But every time I see the tower pop up in one of these types of readings, I immediately think, Congress, Senate, or possibly even Supreme Court. And because we have the whip here, and the Knight of Wands, there is kind of energy coming through that indicates there is some type of big dispute coming towards the end of November, and likely having a financial reference. Let's get a couple of more cards. I was kind of looking for a Pentacles card to come out here, but incidentally, we've got a Cups card. So maybe this is something emotional, which makes a lot of sense because with the fish card, we do also have a reference to deep, flowing emotional states as well. So again, this is probably pointing towards the Epstein files. I think that's what we're going to see all the way through the end of the month for sure. I think that's about the only thing we're going to see and hear about. Looks like there may be a choice to be made over on this side. Let's see what we get for this side. Kind of feels like some people who have been stuck in one place for quite some time are sort of getting to the point where they give up and they walk away from a situation, which is interesting because we have the loyalists up here. And I get the sense with the Fool coming out towards the end that they are walking away from the fighting and the discord and things like that, and pretending like they didn't know anything about any of this in the past. So if you think of how there's always people who will jump off the MAGA train and then later on pretend like they were never on it to begin with. It's kind of that energy a little bit. looks like the party's over. The past celebrations and the victories that I think Donald Trump felt like he was having have kind of come to a standstill. And at this point, it's more about waiting and watching and hoping for the best. And you're beyond the point of work. You've got to a point where the work has ended. The work, if you want to call it that in Trump's case, the work has ended and now you have to wait. So it just feels like a lot of stagnation here on the bottom, and possibly even some looking back on better times and wishing that you could get back to that when things were easier and less complicated. But unfortunately, Trump is at a point right now where things are only going to get more complicated as we go forward. And I don't think that he's ever going to have the feeling of that heyday that he had once upon a time. I think it's going to be pretty difficult for him to move forward from here, because every path that he takes, he's going to be reminded of the mistakes that he made and the partnerships that he should not have made. And he's going to watch a lot of people just walk away from him and pretend like, like turn their back on him even, and pretend like they don't know him. So I think it makes perfect sense with the dog, the tower, and the whip, because the loyalists in government are turning on him. Oh, now this is interesting for general energy. Seems like there's a pretty strong message coming through here. So we have the garden at the center, which is about a gathering or a group of people. So this could be anything from Congress to Senate to just supporters in general. And the reason I say supporters is because we do have the dog card over here. So the loyalists are coming through as kind of the subject here. So I think this is about people who have in the past been loyal to Trump, are now out of self-interest looking for a new path or a different path, possibly even just a path away from Trump in general. And then over here we have the star, the cross, and the whip, and I think this is a pretty good indicator that they are looking for someone new to lead the party. They are looking elsewhere for their guidance and for whatever it was that they used to look to Trump for. They're looking somewhere else. I feel like there's also a sense of hopefulness. But the line ends with the cross and the whip, so it ends in a negative, which means that this is going to be some type of failed attempt. They're not going to be able to find this new path as easily as they possibly think. And something that's coming to mind here is like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example. She seems to be deconstructing from MAGA pretty hard. And she's done some really horrible things. And there was a time when I used to say that I disliked her more than I disliked Donald Trump. And that's really saying a lot. But sometimes I feel like you do have to show people grace. But I think of her as an example for this, because I feel like a lot of times you've kind of gone too far to be able to redirect. And we do have over here with the crossroads this sense of going in a new direction, but it's because of self-interest. So group of people, maybe Congress, maybe just a lot of the people that have been really vocally supportive of Trump in the past. Let's find out, see if Tarot can give us anything to expand on this. Yeah, so this is making some sense already just with two cards down the center. So the Fool and the Seven of Cups. This is very obviously people wandering away from Trump, his name, his brand, his, everything about him, and just the personification of Trump, and looking for new options, basically. Got a quick change of heart over here where new things are growing. And then on this side, it really looks a lot like, I hate to be so specific, but I keep thinking of the Supreme Court. Kind of seems like, if it's not the Supreme Court, obviously we have a reference to justice, which in a political reading is going to make me think of courts. it could just be a general overall energy. And it could be that, with the loyalists here, we know that these are the people who have had Donald Trump's back in the past, but now they're kind of seeing things for what they really are. There's this new light shining on him that really changes their perspective of him and makes them want to correct course, like I said earlier, and rebalance the way that they are seeing things. And it's taking, obviously, a lot of strength to do that. It's not easy to do. A lot of people don't like admitting when they're wrong, and they will continue down a not so great path just for the sake of never having to admit that they were wrong. And so over here, really feel like this is a whiplash change of heart. Okay, it's coming on so fast that it is somewhat mind-boggling. And if we're talking about the loyalists here, this could have some really big implications. Like, wouldn't it be great if all of a sudden we saw the Supreme Court turn against Donald Trump? Which actually, if you think about it, is not entirely unlikely, because there is a good chance that a couple of you-know-whos is in the you-know-whats on the list. So just throwing that out there, we might see, because remember, self-interest, we might see a shift come from in the Supreme Court for that reason alone. But like I said, may not be the Supreme Court. That's just my intuitive interpretation. But as far as the cards themselves go, the Justice card can have a lot of other meanings. So take it with a grain of salt. Definitely interesting, though. And this is just an overall general energy read for Donald Trump and those around him for the rest of November. So I think don't be surprised when you see a lot of people turning on him, even though they were maybe diehard ultra MAGA in the past. Real quick, let's take a look at the Epstein files themselves. So for the Epstein files, we're starting off with the fox in the center. So self-interest, doing what you got to do to stay alive, to, stay afloat, I suppose. And I feel like that's on brand for the people who are going to be affected directly by the Epstein files, because right now I would imagine that they are doing everything they can to protect themselves, avoid this situation, hide from this situation, come up with a spin or a story to justify this situation. I'd say that they're doing a lot of scrambling of every different kind. So not surprised at all to see the fox here. The writer of the book in the lily, there is news coming out, secret news or news of a secret coming out regarding the integrity, the lack of integrity. We'll expand on this and see, if it's positive or negative energy. Generally in Lenormand, the lily card is a good card, but not the way we read it. Not in political readings. So we'll clarify that. Over here with the scythe, the moon, and the crossroads, I feel like this is, again, going back to this self-interest here of the people involved. They're all really worried about their reputations, and they are really worried about what direction they're going to go, what type of hit they're going to take. Well, that's probably Pam Bondi. In most circumstances, it is. May or may not be. We'll see. We'll see. So to go along with the fox energy, we've got the Queen of Wands and the Page of Pentacles. Now, this is most likely Pam Bondi, and she is quite obviously doing everything she can to interfere with the Epstein files and the progress that's, about to be made. But I think she's probably discovering what Mike Johnson already knows, is that the bill that was passed regarding the Epstein files is pretty airtight. And when it comes to her arbitrarily opening up investigations, essentially based on the wording and the verbiage used in the bill, she's going to hit a lot of walls. She's focusing really hard on one specific angle. So apparently she thinks she has found something, some type of loophole. But I tell you, The thing is that they were smart in that bill to break it into moving pieces. So even if she wanted to, let's say, open an investigation on the letter F, they would say, Congress would come back and say, okay, you've got a month. While you're doing that, we're going to continue to request A, B, C, D, and E. They specifically worded things in the bill so that nothing can stop the entire investigation. Everything is kind of in moving pieces. So if she tries to hold up the release by, with one of these arbitrary investigations, like I said, she's going to hit this wall where she still is obligated to release everything else around it. They also were smart to put some things in there. The way that they worded a few of the things regarding time constraints and investigation restraints will give them the ability to be able to pull people who may be involved in an active investigation and still bring them in by way of subpoena to talk to them if this is the route that she goes. They did a phenomenal job of heading her and Trump off at the pass when it comes to all the typical strategies that everybody has seen from them in the past. So she's going to hit quite a few walls here when she starts the redactions. And a lot of people are convinced that, the redactions is where she's really going to be able to have the most impact. And here again, we see her focusing on one specific thing. What happens with the redactions in this bill is that every single redaction must be justified. So we're talking about not just her saying, oh, here's my excuse. She actually has to submit a flurry of documentation as to why every single redaction is redacted. That's a lot of man hours per sentence, Pam. The great thing about this bill and the way that it's written that stops them from opening arbitrary cases and redacting things willy-nilly is that for every time they try to pull one of these antics, they have to justify it. When it comes to opening the investigations, there goes another whole big bunch of man hours because it has to be classified as a federal case. And there is a list, there is a checklist, okay, of things that she has to do, hoops she has to jump through in order for an investigation to be recognized. So they did a phenomenal job with that bill of setting parameters and guardrails to keep Trump and Bondi and so forth from doing the things that they knew that they would do. But what's interesting about this is that she thinks that she is so slick and clever and that she is so tough that she's found a loophole. Let's get, out of curiosity, what is her loophole she thinks she's found? Now, this could be about privilege, financial privilege. It could be that she is going to try to pull something regarding foreign financial connections, maybe by saying that something is possibly intelligence. There are strict parameters around that as well. So she's going to be up creek without a paddle, if you know what I mean. With this privilege, there's also the sense of reaping what you sow. And I think that this card leans negative because of the Five of Cups here beside it. This is the card of epiphanies and strokes of genius. But I think that most likely it's going to be a continual battle where she is constantly trying to find the means, the loopholes. I don't think that there are very many loopholes. Mike Johnson was on the news this morning trying to proclaim that he had found a loophole because there wasn't technically a definition of something in the bill, so that tells me that they're already scrambling to try to find holes in that bill that they can jump through, because that's how Trump and Bondi and, all of them have functioned up until this point, is finding little backdoors and escape hatches in legislation. The fact that this bill was kept really short and really concise makes it even more airtight. So every strategy they attempt, as they've done in the past, they're going to see that it's more trouble than what they are able to pull off. And one of the things, it's really funny if you read the bill, is how much work has to go into, like I said, every time they want to redact something, they've got to put in a ton of work. Every time they want to open an investigation, they got to go through a big, long paper trail, man-hour process of classifying it as a federal investigation. They've got to justify everything. So they're really on a short leash here. And I think this is her trying to find some way, because we have the epiphany here. She is desperately searching for a way through this bill, and I don't think she's going to find it. Anyway, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's move over to this side of the reading and see what cards we get, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the lilies. And this card is wanting to come out. Oh my gosh, look, guys. Look, he came out. There he is. I'm going to put him right side by side so you can see him. Isn't that neat? Now, if the High Priestess comes out to go along with the book, that's going to be crazy. Okay, it's not the High Priestess. Go ahead and scoot him back down. So the Page of Wands and the Knight of Wands. All right, so very obviously here, what we've got is she's working on this strategy. This, like for the last part of November, we are going to see constant attempts coming from Trump and Bondi to find that loophole, that back door that I was talking about. We are going to watch them flail. She thinks that she can pull this off. She thinks like she's looking at this, reading this bill over and over from every angle, trying her best to figure out, what can I do with this? How can I manipulate this? How can I nitpick the language? How can I, find something, give me something? She is searching and angry and determined. Okay. So in regard to the Lenormand cards above, now at first glance, I thought that we were talking about possibly seeing some scandalous stuff come out, some secrets. I think what makes the most sense with these cards is this is her looking at the bill. Okay, this is the bill itself. And she's searching for any type of indiscretion or anything that, like I said, that may be able to give her a way around their language. So this is her bypassing or attempting to bypass the language of the bill. Again, going back to the center energy of survival and trying to survive a situation. Here we have, to go along with the Scythe Moon and the Crossroads and the impact of reputation and being hit here with the energy of the Scythe and the Crossroads, the different directions, going different directions. I believe no matter what direction they go, it's failure. Everything's going to crumble because they built this structure on unstable ground. The Trump administration is crumbling. With the Strength card and the Two of Coins, this is them mustering the strength to try to keep things in motion, and it's not going to go where they think it's going to go. So this is once again her failing at trying to find the means to justify some type of diversion, and she can't do it. She can't do it. So as for the Epstein files, this is what we're going to see in regard to the progress for the files throughout the end of November. I look forward to watching the Trump administration flounder their way through this. It's going to be hysterically funny watching them and their desperate attempts. But I think it is time that Trump faces some accountability, and I think that time is now. So good luck, Pam. Alrighty, folks, that'll do it for this one. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you are new here and you love political divination, be sure to subscribe and stick around and become part of the community. Okie dokie. Well, I will see you all in the next video. You all have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I will see you later.